was also questioned by a lot of people as to how you can do both actually to achieve growth, achieve employment, increase employment aggressively, and still maintain your interest rates at 12% MPR and the level of cash reserve ratios you're asking for. So we will say that he's trying to do, he has set himself very, very tough standards and objectives. He hasn't really shown how he can do that balancing act successfully to keep inflation down, keep interest rates and foreign exchange rates about where they are now, and at the same time stimulate growth in a very aggressive manner, like you have the Fed doing with their stimulus packages. So he has to come out with a formula that will be quite interesting in the sense that he will be able to maintain the stability. What some observers expected was that he was going to be ready to risk something. That, for example, he was going to say, look, I'm going to start moving interest rates down. If it means inflation is going to shoot beyond 9%, I'm ready to pay a price to take a little bit of more inflation so that I can pursue growth and fast track employment. But he doesn't seem to be willing to cross that step, that line of taking that risk. He still wants to try keep the 6 to 9% frame inflation target, keep MPR shouldn't go more than 12%, try and keep it 12% and start to bring it down, and then you want to fast track employment. You want to fast track massive growth. So he hasn't convinced anyone yet how he's going to be able to balance all those objectives.
Mr. Alimi, does organized private sector feel the same way? Do they feel that Mr. Emefiele is moving in the right direction?
Well, we say he has been very cautious. It's been a cautious 3 months and a little more thereabout, especially in the monetary policy issue. I take something away from what he said when he was coming in. He actually promised he was going to reduce interest rates.
But that was after the elections, he said.
Well, after the election, but of course, like Mr. Idahosa said, we expected to see some bold steps, some bold moves, some courageous move in the sense of, okay, I looked at the minute of the last MPC meeting, and I find out that instead of, when you look at the voting pattern, some voted to retain, while others voted that it should even go up, which meant nobody was actually looking at even bringing it down. And I think the CBN governor was supposed to bring to bear his own plan on that committee, because if the committee is not getting any serious framework or plan from the CBN governor, how he thinks he can do the two together, they would not be confident enough to say, okay, bring it down. So I think he's been very cautious. I would say some of the move he made, we have to commend him. He removed the charge on deposit, which is commendable. At least it will serve as a stimulus for people to bring money into the system. And the launch of the 20, though these are started before he came in, at least he made sure it happened, the 220 billion MSME fund. So we are watching. I think 3 months is a very short period, but because he made some promises, we have to take him on those promises he made, and it's not happening yet.
Well, still talking about those promises, yes. If you remember his inaugural speech and assumption of office, he talks about the fact that yes, the rates will come down, but they'll come down gradually, but not at this period until after the elections, because during this period of electioneering, it's expected that there'll be high liquidity in the market. We should definitely see more pressure on the naira and possible, dollarization of the economy, which is what he's trying to, as much as possible, reduce. He also still stated it at the MPC meeting, at the end of the MPC meeting when he was reading the communique. So, in light of that, in light of the CBN's, decision to ensure that the economy stays the way it stays, the interest rate stays the way it stays, will it affect how people will begin to view his utterances as a CBN governor?
Well, you are going to be taken by your words any day. That's why the current CBN governor has started to behave like a typical CBN governor who talks very little. He talked 3 months ago and he's kept quiet and decided to see the economy perhaps gradually reflect his vision So there's no way we in the economy will not hold him to his words. He came out to say he wanted a broader obligation, a broader commitment of the CBN to the economy beyond control of inflation and interest rates. That he wanted a CBN that will contribute to economic growth and develop the economy. That he will be held onto for the 4 years. But if we are saying that because of elections, you won't do nothing for 6 months, we have 3 months of this year, another 3 months next year before the elections are over. That's 6 months out of 4 years tenure. So really you have to say the morning tell us the day, how the day is going to be. If you cannot come down from 12% to a very significant reduction, say to 11, and you gave a sign that even if it's just 11.8 or 9 or something, you gave a sign of courage that's to say we can't go down very quickly, but we are giving a sign that come election we are going to start moving, and we are sending this message to the entire banking system that begin to reduce interest rates, because even with 12%, the premium added by the banks is far too high. Even at 12%, 12% MPR, banks are letting at 22%. So premium rate, for the very large corporations, they do 17, 18, 19. So if you as a leader give a sign that we need to start coming down, even if it's 11.75, and you say to everyone, because of election, we are not going to see a faster reduction in interest rates, but let us show the sign. Let the morning tell us the day that is going to come after the elections. And then the banks will begin to get a signal that this is going to happen, and everybody will be flowing in that direction. Right now, we are on the freeze. Wait until after election before we see anything.
Well, talking about waiting until after elections to see anything, we saw a dramatic change, the reintroduction of the 65 naira on ATM remote and not cash withdrawals. Now, that generated a lot of furore, and in spite of the fact that it's here to stay, we've noticed that the 65 naira charge is supposed to take effect from the 4th withdrawal, but it happens on every withdrawal that you make. If you use another bank ATM, that's what's been happening. A lot of complaints have been coming from customers. The fact that you go to use another ATM, you have the idea that after your 4th withdrawal, you're charged, but it's on every charge that is, every withdrawal that is made that you're charged. And so customers have begun to ask, was this really necessary to be reintroduced? Mr. Aliwi?
It's the big question. Was it really necessary? I've been a victim to. Actually, I forgot, and I was charged on my 3rd withdrawal, and it was when I was charged, I asked myself, was it not supposed to be the 4th? And I've heard people who have said I was charged on my 2nd withdrawal. I think there's a lot of misinterpretation of that rule, and I think the CBN may have to come forward and actually tell us what exactly that regulation was. When are we supposed to be charged? But be that as it may, was it necessary to have that? When you look at the banking industry today, it seems to be an industry that is doing very well, quote and unquote. And if they are doing very well, so much well that people are wondering why the banks are doing so well and the real sector is not doing as well as it should. Normally, there's supposed to be a synergy between the two, and we're supposed to move the same way. You ask yourself, why did you have to make more money, especially on the people? When you look at the deployment of ATM machine nationwide, you need to go outside Lagos and see how tough it is for people to get access to collect money from ATM machine. Go even as close by as Ibadan or go to the east. The machine available are not enough to serve the people. And don't forget, the bank itself had made rules. You cannot collect cash below 100,000 from the counter. So you must use the ATM. So we are not giving people choices here. I can decide not to use ATM at all.
Well, the banks say that the 65 naira charge is to help with maintenance of these machines, which is the reason why they actually, encourage their customers to, as much as possible, use their own ATMs, so that it makes it less strenuous on them. Because if you have to go and use another person's ATM, you have to pay.
Well, you see, the thing is, there are some banks that have large numbers of customers, especially banks in the rural areas. We have some traditional banks that have been there for ages and have taken over maybe 80% of the banking populace in that area. And then you have a new bank that is just coming in and is just making little inroads. You find out that even the smaller banks deploy more ATMs than the big ones.